Hello, this is CJ, and I'm gonna be showing how to build a quiet and inexpensive Bitcoin miner. I've always thought Bitcoin mining was fun, but never liked making something that's particularly noisy. For me, Bitcoin mining is not about making the most amount of money, partially because I live in California and power is insanely expensive. There's no reasonable way you can have a successful Bitcoin mining, at least on residential rates or whatever. Now I have solar, and power's essentially free in a way, although I can sell it back to the utility for a reasonable price, such that even with the bad rate that they buy it at, it still doesn't make sense to mine. However, if you need the heat, so powers and gas is very expensive in California, and if you want to heat your home, you have to pay for it. And I was thinking I could use a Bitcoin mine to do heating. The problem is that it means that the Bitcoin mine is not a good heater because, well, for several reasons. You can't control it particularly easily, it makes a ton of noise, it's ugly, bulky, so I sought to figure out how to make my biggest problem with Bitcoin mines, which is that they are noisy. That's my first area. So what I did was I went online, and I'll show some stuff online. I'll switch to doing a bit of screen sharing and show some online things that I put together, I bought to build the Bitcoin mine. Okay, so this is the Antminer S9. I think it's also the S9 and the S9i are pretty close. It's about $100 without a power supply. I think I paid about $125. That was a fair while ago. I think it was knocked down. All miners were knocked down when the halving happened, but price of Bitcoin is really up since when I bought my miner, so they float around just like Bitcoin itself. Costs about $100, no power supply used, right? Now, let's have a look at nicehash. Let's see, and on nicehash, there's a mining hardware evaluator where you can click over to ASICs, and then there's all the, I'll post this link probably. Let's see here, but you can look for the S9i. That's the one I have here, and you can actually hear it running in the background. It's quiet enough that I can record in here with it running right in the middle of my office. So this is the S9i. It earns 90 cents a day, running 24/7, and uses, I guess this is the power consumption. Yeah, estimated cost. I think this is assuming maybe 10 cents a kilowatt hour. Anyway, there's some default somewhere. So it's not profitable, which is why it's cheap, unless your power is bizarrely cheap. It uses 1300. This is a good way of seeing how much power it's going to draw. What I didn't realize when I bought it was it's fairly easy to control the amount of power that it uses, at least with the Brains OS that somebody put on before I got it, which I didn't have to do because I got to use. So let's get on to actually looking at the miner itself. Okay, so what did I do here? I made the Antminer S9i pretty much silent using an ordinary EVGA, what they call modular power supply, that is essentially silent. I mean, it's extremely quiet. And I took the stock cables that come with and use the VGA peripheral over here, plugged into VGA1, VGA2, VGA3, ran them up into the Antminer. It's still connected to the original power supply, which is quite noisy. And then I just used, each one has 2 of the 6-pin plugs, so I spread them around a bit there, and then I used, only one of the hash boards has only one of the connectors plugged in. I think they're all interconnected, so I think the hash boards work just fine when you only plug in one of the power supply, one of the sockets there. And then I took one of them and split it off to run the, I guess that's the control board where the Ethernet comes in. So now it's running over here. Let's have a look. I'm running at the lowest possible, speed at the moment. 400 watts using Brains OS to control the power. And that 400 watts here is getting me 3.32 terahashes, which is what I've had in the past running on other things. It's still tuning, I believe, testing performance profile, getting 100 watts on each board. So everything looks to be good there. And then over here on my power supply, I'm getting 376 watts going out. So I got 376 watts on my I'm just testing on my 850 watt power supply. Just had it lying around for my gaming machine to see if this would work. And there's nice airflow coming through here. It's warm coming through there. And then over here I'm showing the fans are running at their minimum possible speed, which is, that's the main Antminer fan at 1500 RPM. So this thing was making a fair amount of noise before. I may do a follow-up video or do a video of it running with the built-in power supply, which is underneath there. It's very compact and it came with it. It's just a used unit here, but it's noisy because the fans are physically small. They look to be just, you know, a couple inches in diameter or whatever that is. So this big fan is not too noisy. Now, when I run this thing up to full power, like 1400 watts or so, 1400 watts, this big fan starts to run hard and it oscillates as well. So it makes a lot of annoying undulating noise. But when it's under clocked or under spec'd here, you get, I wouldn't call it silent, but quite quiet, no worse than a PC sitting and idling. And you know, it's producing some heat and producing some Bitcoin, albeit slowly. Okay, this is it running now at, I set it to 750 watts. Seems to be running very stably at about double the hash rate, or a little bit less than that. This is an 850 watt power supply. I'm not sure how close to take it to 850. Probably could go to 850 because it actually wound up using about 650 when I set it to 750, 647.8. And then there's the 615 here. So yeah, these numbers vary a lot and it doesn't really hit it exactly. It's definitely warmer. It's running a little hotter, which is good. But there doesn't appear to be any more noise. So I'm pretty sure I could put on a 1000 watt power supply and run this thing at about 900 watts, which is getting into the natural range that this thing runs best at. If you go up into 1400 watts or even 1200 watts, the fans in the unit start to run pretty hard. So if you want it to be truly silent, running it somewhere around 900 watts, 800 watts, maybe 1000 will be as good as it's going to get from a noise perspective all around. Which is not bad for a miner that is notoriously noisy. I think maybe people don't really realize how much the sort of stock power supply uses. Now the other problem I have here is that, I mean, this is something of a compact unit with power supply underneath. It's messy with the cables coming around the side, the yellow ones there, but you know, these yellow lines here are coming down from below. But with the power supply from a computer, it's just not the same form factor. The fan's facing in the wrong direction. If you mount it on the bottom like that, the fan would be on the floor. There's all sorts of problems with it. And then you also, in order to make it run, you need to use a paperclip from the ATX power supply to sort of fool the power supply into thinking that someone has hit the power button on the front of the computer, which is where all this does is trip the connection between the two, you know, the number 4 and the number 3. I think you connect up the neutral and ground or something like that. There's other videos on that. So what I need to do next is something I've been meaning to do with my gold miner, which is also silent, and have it in a box of some kind. So if I do continue on with this video, I'll look into making a kind of a probably wooden plywood box of some kind that's made in such a way as to hold all these wires and the networking. So what I did with the networking while I'm here as well is I ran it over to one of these extenders. It was cheap. It's like 13 bucks. As all this stuff goes, it's one of the best, cheapest things in here. And that way you can kind of put it anywhere in your house and not worry about where there's a Ethernet availability. In most houses, that's only beside the router. So this makes it really portable, even though it's ungainly at the moment. And so I think the thing to do is to box it up. So that'll be the next project. One last thing. I've been feeling these wires here. I was gonna get a peripheral cable. Where was that? I have it around here somewhere. Anyway, I was gonna get a peripheral cable that came off the SATA output. Oh, it's on here already. So I was gonna take this guy, and as you can see, it comes off the peripheral output, and run it over here to the connect up the board, the control board. I'm pretty sure this control board takes virtually no power, maybe 10 watts, 20 watts. So it doesn't sort of make a difference. And I'm a little bit concerned about whether the pins are all working out, because I took an adapter here that gets the 6 pin on one end and then connects to the 6 pin on the other end. This is supposed to control or provide power to hard drives, storage devices. So I'm a little concerned that that may not be the right pin configuration, but only a little concerned. And then I could take this and have 2 of them connected into the 3rd hash board here. Usually 3 hash boards, 1, 2, 3. So that'd be a way to refine this a little further and maybe squeeze another 50, 100 watts out of the power supply. So anyways, all fine tuning. I need to find out if stressing these kinds of power supplies, like running them very continuously at their full rated power, really does kill them or not. I've had these things die on me, and I never know if it's because they've been run hard or they just get old. Doesn't seem to be too much connection between the two. So this is a particularly good one, an EVGA. So yeah, I might do some research on that as well. The other odd little benefit of doing this is that I've got this really heavy, these are a little hard to find, a little bit expensive. This is like a 14 amp cable. I don't know what that is, AWG6 or something like that. It's very heavy. And they're rather expensive, but now, when others running at like 800 watts or whatever, I could just use an ordinary cable here. So, once I figure out how to package and box this up, this may be an easy thing to install. And make sort of into a kind of thing you can carry around and put from one place to the next. A quiet heater. That's my goal, actually, is to have a easy to move, easy to run, quiet heater.